And so to our, well, the first of our political keynote speeches, but the one that could really count hugely in this room. Because if you count, I don't know, if you measure Labour Party power by the distance of someone's constituency from Manchester, then Peter Kyle is in some respects hanging on by a thread. But the fact that he has come today, I think, is an enormous testament to the man. I always find on Today programme interviews that he answers the questions, which, let's face it, not all politicians of all stripes find it easy to do. But he is someone who faces up to things, and he's faced up to the fact that although he is currently the Secretary of State for Business, who knows in a few weeks' time whether he still will be. And based on that distance from Manchester, I suppose you could say there are some doubts. But Manchesterism is possibly a thing of the mind as well, and he certainly has that. And he has not only done this job, but also in his previous jobs as well. He's shown himself very much to be a member, as it were, of the modern world. So I'm delighted that the Right Honourable Peter Kyle is with us and is going to take the stage now, and I think possibly even take a question or two right at the end. Peter, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Justin. Is he really going to be judging it from the distance from Manchester? I mean, Hove is a bit of a trek, but I think he likes to go there in the summer, certainly when the conference season is in, so you never know. Look, I want to say a huge thank you for having me here today. Whenever I meet people from the automotive sector, I feel very much that I'm among friends, and I know that we are equally amongst enthusiasts, because I think I don't need to prove to you my credibility when it comes to motoring enthusiasm and my love of motoring and the motoring sport. So thank you for having me here, and also thank you for the persistence you have shown to get the industry to where it is today, despite some of the many challenges that recent history has posed. Because you are an industry with a proud history of innovation and quality, whose evolution has traced the developments in technology right across wider society. From the status symbol, from the family car, Formula One, right the way through to self-driving EVs. This is an industry which has learnt to adapt and move to the tastes and trends of global circumstances. And I want to acknowledge the strength and the sheer resilience of this sector. You have weathered storms from Brexit to COVID to tariffs and now more recently to Iran. The UK has a globally competitive automotive base, supporting 143,000 jobs. £38 billion in exports is generated. Now, I recently visited the F1 Red Bull team in Milton Keynes. When I was there, I was reflecting on the success of the Formula One industry, the franchise, not just as a sport, but as a great British export. One that has kept us right at the frontier, one that is generating £12 billion for our economy, one supporting a supply chain of 4,500 businesses, many of whom are SMEs, and one supporting 40,000 good jobs right around the country. And that's to say nothing of what Formula One does for engineering, for apprenticeships and skills. Justin referred to my previous role when I was Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology. We talk a lot about frontier technology in AI, mostly associated with Silicon Valley. But people forget that we have a frontier technology here in the UK, and it is Formula One, and it is in our automotive sector. 10 of the 11 teams are based right here. And in the times I visited the teams, and you meet the apprentices that are making their way into those teams, because people forget just how much energy goes into and effort goes into creating those cars. You meet somebody who's starting their life in automotive engineering in an environment with unlimited resources and striving for perfection in any one part of the components that they are working on. Now, that youngster, whether they stay in that team or another team, whether they stay in that sector or they go to another part of the automotive sector, they will take that experience of striving for perfection with them throughout their entire careers. And that is something you get nowhere else in the entire world. And it is nothing to say what Formula One does for the greater engineering landscape, for apprenticeships, and, of course, for the wider skills environment. Now, when people watch F1, they probably don't realise quite how many jobs go into creating that car and getting that team to the start line, and particularly how much effort it takes to get to the finish line, which many teams struggle to get to these days. And they almost certainly don't know how closely linked that industry is with the industry that made their car that they drive to work every single day. It is our ecosystem in the UK which makes this such a rich and fruitful place for the automotive sector. From Sunderland in the northeast to Ellesmere Port in the northwest, Cowley and the Midlands. The latest figures are encouraging. The UK car production is up compared to May last year. That is a positive rebound after months of challenge. But I believe that we are at a fork in the road, and I don't use that analogy lightly. In the next 5 years, we will either have a thriving auto sector or a greatly diminished one. The status quo that we have today is not an option. That's why using our industrial strategy to turn those numbers around with you has been so important to me. 1 year on from the industrial strategy's publication, we can prove we have put our money where our mouth is. Through Drive 35, we're funding the electrification of vehicle plants alongside batteries, electric motors, hydrogen fuel cells, and power electronics. It's the biggest investment in our car industry since the post-war era. We have our energy supercharger, and we have the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme. They will save businesses millions of pounds on top of the relief that we have already provided. And we have taken a big stake in this sector, investing some £380 million into Agratas Gigafactory in Somerset. This is strengthening the UK's battery production capabilities, but it's also strengthening the motor industry, ensuring that you benefit from secure domestic supply. Through our trade strategy, we're also showing that we are serious about supporting foreign direct investment. And we're equally serious about opening up major export markets for our car industry. Our deal with India enters into force in just a couple of weeks' time. It's a deal which takes auto tariffs from over 100% down to 10%, while opening the doors to millions of Indian consumers. We have similar deals with South Korea, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and of course the Economic Prosperity Deal with the United States. Now that protects our sales to the UK's largest single trading partner. Now through our strategic partnership with the European Union, we are also minimising trade friction wherever we can. And I'm fighting really hard so the UK's inclusion within the Made in Europe programme, because I know how important it is to every single person in this room. Today, I'll be meeting with my Chinese counterpart to discuss boosting our bilateral trade with Beijing and to better utilise the Export to China Memorandum of Understanding that we signed earlier this year. And bear in mind about these successes. This is the first deal of its kind that China has ever signed with a European country. Now, I want this deal to work for our auto industry and to get us more UK-Chinese partnerships off the ground, like the LEVC and London Taxis, or Geely and Lotus in Norfolk. They have just launched a brand new high-performance hub in Hethel. And to the SMMT's members, those thinking about their presence in the UK over the long term, I want to say this to you very directly. That also means listening to what you have told us on zero emissions vehicles mandate. It's all very well Whitehall setting national policy targets to achieve behavioural change. There are real-world consequences for centrally driven targets, consequences and trade-offs. Now, of course, it is vital to make the changes necessary to transition from gas guzzlers to zero emissions. just as it is important to ensure the balance in scope and speed of that transition. Get that transition right, and we can refashion our economy for the carbon-neutral age. Get that transition wrong, and we risk untold damage to the UK automotive industry, with the real-world impact felt in jobs and industry in the English regions. Now, my view is that this transition has to protect jobs in the automotive sector as well as protect our environment. That transition has to promote British industrial capability as well as Britain's international climate reputation. It has to be attuned to the needs of British cities and regions in the West Midlands, in the North East, in the North West of England, in Cowley and Castle Bromwich, and the tolerance of the British people. And it must not introduce perverse incentives to suck in more imports with lower environmental standards in the pursuit of higher environmental outcomes. That is why I believe the consultation on the ZEF mandate has to be balanced, acceptable, affordable, and effective for the British automotive industry and to the UK wider economy. Now, we always said that we would keep this under review. We always said that we needed to be pragmatic and take a balanced approach. Now, we know from car manufacturers that you are experiencing significant challenges at the moment, and so the review will be completed as soon as I can possibly manage it. But make no mistake, we are committed to the EV transition and the creation of world-leading EV manufacturing ecosystems here in the UK. The fact is that consumers do want EVs. For the first time in the UK, more new electric vehicles have been sold over the last 12 months than petrol cars alone, although I know there's some dispute about whether hybrids should be included in the numbers or not. Europe reached a similar milestone just in a similar time. But let me be blunt. Electric is the future, and we don't build these, and if we don't build these EV drivers, so if we don't build these EVs here, drivers won't stick to British petrol or diesel cars out of blind loyalty. They will turn to BYD or to Tesla or anyone that can put them in a brand new EV with a low monthly payment. That's why we need to build these vehicles here in Britain. Sports cars, supercars, hatchbacks, four-wheel drives. So I don't think we need a mandate to steer the industry to that electric future. But equally, if we accept that zero emissions is the destination, then the journey time we have set ourselves is key. The speed of that transition is key. Now, throughout my time as business secretary, I haven't shied away from placing big bets, from backing industries that can win and win big in the next decade and into the next. That's what our industrial strategy has always been about. It's about playing to our strengths and securing our competitive advantage in the world. Now, I see our motor industry as one of these winners, one of our high export, high growth, high potential sectors, and it's one with great brand recognition, pedigrees, heritage. That's something that is something that no one on the other international players can compete with. So let me finish with this, a statement and also a promise. Our industrial strategy is working for our motor industry, and it is here to stay. Now, this government will continue working hand in hand with you to get the right investments. We will continue helping this industry to move forward, and together we will bring about a renaissance with more cars being designed and built right here in Britain. Thank you. Want me to stay here?
Yeah, why don't you stay there? Very kindly agree to ask a question or two. Can I just kick us off before we get to...
I knew you would.
And I
couldn't resist it.
Yeah. and it's this. You mentioned the gigafactory in Bridgewater. So we had, I think it was the chief procurement officer here this morning saying, and he wasn't criticizing government, wasn't criticizing any government, but he was saying in China it takes X amount of time to get something done. In Britain it's 2X. In China energy is X. In Britain it's 2 point something X. To what extent do you think the new administration is willing to come to terms, and we were hearing it with Chris Strauss as well about energy costs, that actually there are some things basic to this industry, this sector, but actually to others as well, that are so fundamentally out of kilter with the outside world that we've got to take hard choices about?
We do have to take hard choices. I've been down to the Agratas facility myself. I went and visited it, and it's an incredible area because you stand on the top of the Agratas site, which is about 36 meters high, and you see Hinkley Point C, a few fields across. I mean, it's an incredible area for industrial development these days. But we are competing internationally, and I think the point that was made earlier was that it takes double the amount of time to build things here, that sort of development here in the UK, than in China, for example. Now, China, of course, has a very different system, a very different land ownership system. So, of course, in a democracy, there will always be checks and balances that go into major developments like this. But we do need to speed it up. It is intensely frustrating to me. When I came into office and designed the AI growth zone program, all out of London, £50 billion investments into part of the country that have been left behind, new wave of investment coming with new technological change.
Growth in every postcode.
Well, I mean, actually, I've been doing that since I came into office since day one. And when you look at the areas that are actually having these growth zones and the amount of investment going into it, it will equal into some of these areas, such as Teesside, such as Blythe, such as parts of Wales, and also Scotland. The amount of investment that was actually not dissimilar to the first industrial revolution that drove those communities in the first place, and the absence of development been driving a turn to populism in our politics. So it's the right thing to do economically, socially, and politically. But when it comes to this specific issue, the Planning Act that we've put forward does give powers to the Secretaries of State now to act in a way which is more assertive. I've used those powers to the absolute maximum that I can to be on the side of people of getting shovels in the ground as quickly as we can. We do need planning reform. We also need incentives so that these facilities are profitable in this country. I put £240 million into the Agratas development. It is made entirely with British steel, another investment that the British government is making from my department, so that we can start aligning the investments to lower costs overall. And when it comes to energy costs, I accept, and it is intensely frustrating for me, that we have an uncompetitive overall electricity market when it comes to business. And we're fighting really hard to get it down. So the two schemes I mentioned there, the supercharger and the BIC scheme, Agratas will benefit from that, and that will bring down the energy that they use to almost the EU average, from what is an outlier within the EU and certainly with our other G7 comparators. So we are pushing down the costs, we are speeding up, but it will not be job done until we can go considerably further.
Okay, anyone got I think a hand was up here, yes, and you've even got the microphone, go for it.
Simon Godwin from Finia Delphi, UK. Thanks very much for your commitment and your enthusiasm. I'd like to ask how you can help companies like us to avoid the collateral damage from the steel safeguards, which come into place tomorrow. So I can tell you, and we have 1,500 people in the UK, so I can tell you our situation is that we use steel imported from abroad, which is not made in the UK, cannot for the foreseeable future be made in the UK, but is still included within the quotas and the increased tariffs. That is something that causes significant costs to us, hundreds of thousands of pounds we're talking about. And that is a massive dent in our profitability. And I'm sorry to say that it actually puts into question the viability of our UK operations. So, what can we do to sort out that situation, both for us and for other similar manufacturers?
Thank you. Tariffs are a lose-lose. And you'll know from the way that I've acted in this job that when the EU announced their measures, their steel tariffs, it was well over 3 months before I started announcing, our response. I used that 3 months as productively as I could, travelling across the EU and to Brussels numerous times to try and find a bespoke bilateral solution to avoid having to have solutions in the first place. Incidentally, the same with America. We should not be, as allied countries who have the same circumstances domestically and impacted by oversupply and the ability to produce steel cheaper, which is negatively impacting domestic markets. We have the same problem, and we should be working much closer together to solve that problem. But we are where we are. And if I had not acted as I did, then make no mistake about it, we would lose all primary steel production in the UK, and we would lose it within just a short matter of months. And in an age where resilience of our economy and the ability to produce essential supply chain products, of which steel is one, is essential to our national defence, national security, but also the broader economy, I wasn't willing to countenance that. Britain would have been awash with cheap steel coming in from all over the world simply because other major territories were protecting themselves from it. And if I hadn't acted, then Britain would not have done. I did so reluctantly, but also the way that I've imposed those tariffs, those measures, means that it only protects and puts measures up on products that are being made in the UK to protect primary production. Now, I accept when you go down into the details of it, that there are some, we're talking 10-digit reference codes that we're going down to the detail of, that applies to whether steel is made in the UK or not. In some of those areas, there is some crossover and ambiguity. Now, we've done several revisions of the codes before going live. My department still stands ready to look at specifics. So please contact my department with specifics, reference codes, quantities, and the type of steel we're talking about. And then we will continue to revise to make sure we protect downstream as much as we possibly can from the essential principle of protecting primary production in the UK. And at the same time, working very closely with my counterparts to find if there is a more palatable, a more productive way of protecting British steel, including downstream, working with allies rather than as we are at the moment, being buffeted around by the actions of our allies.
Peter, you've got to go and meet the Chinese. We've got to have lunch, so we're all busy, but in different respects. Well, I'm sure
you said what car you
very
drive?
Delighted.
Have you said what car you drive?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, I don't know.
Have you
No,
got
just
to?
only just didn't. So. Can anyone guess what car he might drive?
Ferrari.
I think it's an Audi.
It's a 2008 VW Golf that I was
There we
given
go.
by
It's
our
British.
parents
It's
in
British,
law.
everyone.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Very nice to meet you.